opponent was a long time ago. I don't know if it was before black and white television, so I'm not sure. Vanderbilt, a favorite this week over LSU in this matchup. Obviously, we have talked about the Vanderbilt Commodores since the beginning of this season with all the hype, all the leverage. They finally were able to get a really nice winning season a year ago. Got a win over Bama, a win over Auburn for the first time in decades, and now going up against a really strong LSU team as the favorite. So you have to pay a little bit of a premium to bet the Commodores this week. I'm Gerhard Mathangani, joined by Patrick Walsh on Southeast Sports Plus. First of all, Patrick, it's insane because when you take a look at the 2025 Vanderbilt team, it's like it's not a surprise that they're favored. But when you take a look at their history, it's like, wow, it's been a really long time.
Yeah, I mean, the Vanderbilt program, sports program in general, has been known in the SEC for its baseball talent. And baseball has carried the weight for the football and both basketball teams. Right. Well, now here we go. Enter Clark Lee and Diego Pavia, and all of a sudden the culture around the program has just shifted. Mm-hmm. I mean, we talked a couple of weeks ago ahead of the Vanderbilt-Alabama game, and we were like, when was the last time, if ever, Vanderbilt's helmet was on the set of College Game Day?
Right.
And you had to go back to 2008 when they hosted Auburn.
That's right.
Now we're looking at it, I'm like, man, they're favored against LSU. What is going on now?
Yeah, it's insane because you take a look at this program, and there was a lot of, and people might disagree with this, there was, to me, a lot of hype, a lot of bark before the season, but now there's true substance beyond the style, beyond the hype, beyond the talk. And it's really hard for teams to back it up, especially after they have dealt with success. Now, some people might roll their eyes at Vanderbilt's success because it's not the same as what Oklahoma deems as success, or what Auburn feels like they should deserve as far as success goes. But they made rings for the Birmingham Bowl, and I think they did that more for a psychological thing, more so than it was a real tangible thing, because they are wanting to be a program that is on that next rise, that is coming up here. And as you mentioned it, Clark Lee, this is the reason why his name has been associated with a lot of the Power 4 jobs, is because he's setting a new tradition, setting a new standard there in Vanderbilt.
Yeah, I mean, you look at last year, with the whole Birmingham Bowl rings aside, they hosted Alabama, and for the first time ever, they knocked off a number one team in program history. And then you look at this year, they're off to their best start since 2008.
Right.
What happened in that 2008 season, the wheels started to fall off towards the end. I believe they finished 7-6. Clark Lee and company do not want that to happen this weekend.
Absolutely.
Or this year.
Right.
And they have a tough test ahead of them hosting LSU. But, I mean, it just goes back. I go back to the Alabama game, and honestly, that game told me more about Vanderbilt than it did about Alabama. It told me that Vanderbilt can compete with the top teams in the SEC. I mean, if you look at the game, they were 2 Diego Pavia turnovers away from actually being able to knock off the Crimson Tide.
Yeah. Okay, well, then now that you say that, actually brings up a really interesting question, because I didn't think of it from that perspective. So this line that is Vandy is the favorite. Does this tell you more about what Vegas thinks about LSU or what Vegas thinks about Vanderbilt? And I'm just thinking out loud right now because I'm trying to answer the question as I ask it. Because to me, it might be a hybrid of both, but to me, it does show Vanderbilt a lot of respect. But also, too, this is the number 10 team in the country. This is. I mean, this LSU football team that's coming in here, yes, they haven't looked like this dominating team like that we might have thought, you know, considering the fact that Garrett Nussmeier's back, considering the fact that Harold Perkins Jr. and that defense looks really solid again going into this year. But this, to me, is an LSU team that seems, obviously they lost at Ole Miss, but they seem like they don't have it all together. So I don't know if this line is telling you more of Vegas telling you, we don't necessarily believe that this is a top 10 team, even if they only have one loss.
I'm going to say two things. First, I think Vanderbilt coming off the open week is a huge benefit.
That's a good point. That's a good point.
You built some confidence in the Alabama game,
right?
Being able to prove that you do belong at this stage, and now you had an extra week to prepare for LSU.
Yeah.
And then you look at the other side of the equation, and this guy right here, Garrett Nussmeier, he's still trying to figure it out.
Yep.
Coming into this season, I thought he was going to, just run away with the SEC alongside his teammates there at LSU. But, I mean, it's been a mystery so far this year for Garrett Nussmeier. And you look at the game, which we're going to have Mariah Ross on here in about 10 minutes to break down that game against South Carolina. He didn't look great.
Right.
And the offense still has these plaguing issues that are just, it makes you scratch your head because for the second straight time at home in an SEC game, the LSU won 20-10.
Right. Yeah.
But this game didn't really feel like 20-10.
No.
It felt like it should have ended like 30-10.
Right.
But a couple of goal line stands by the Gamecock defense, forcing I believe it was a fumble and a goal line interception.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it just, like, what's going on with the LSU offense?
Yeah, I had to look down just to make sure I had this right because I knew that LSU going into last week's game wasn't on the upper crust of offenses in the SEC, and it's still the case that they're right now number 12 in the SEC. This is all games considered. So I believe that even if you put it at the SEC games, which I can click over to that tab and see, it'll be even worse than that. And as you said, this is an offense to me that has seemed like we feel like every week, okay, well, this would be the week that they get it all together. This would be the week that they get it all together, whether it is Garrett Nussmeier or anybody from the offensive line or the receivers or whoever. But this is a great graphic here because LSU's problems have not just been the ineptitude of being able to move the ball consistently, but also Garrett Nussmeier with those 2 interceptions. They had 2 goal line turnovers, as you have here as well. But I think that it's like they have players, but as you mentioned, that's not being able to get it done consistently. And how long can you hang on to this great defense as you move forward throughout the season?
Yeah, I mean, all the talk was around Aaron Anderson and this wide receiver core.
Yeah.
Well, you look at the graphic that I just had up. We'll go back to it right here. Look at the bottom there.
That's right.
Trey'Dez Green, a former college basketball player.
Yeah.
8 receptions, 119 yards, and a touchdown. I mean, when he's it's always interesting to me because we see this with Clemson now with Ian Shefflin, former power forward for Clemson, moving over to tight end with the program. And I'd be interested to see if more coaches start to do this route where, okay, we look at the men's basketball team.
Yeah.
Let's look at like a power forward or someone that has already used up all of their eligibility. They played 4 years of basketball, but want to dip into football a little bit because, I mean, that's a guy that can go get you. In basketball, we call it a guy that can go get you a bucket.
Yeah.
He can go get you a touchdown in the red zone.
Yeah, and we've seen this level of success. I mean, there's a guy that just went to the Hall of Fame a few months ago that did the exact same thing, and Antonio Gates played basketball for forever, ended up playing in the pros. Tony Gonzalez the exact same way. Jimmy Graham was the exact same way there with University of Miami and the Saints. Let me ask you this as well with Green. Do you think it could be almost like what Dallas Wilson was a couple of weeks ago for Florida, where it's one guy that almost is able to almost single-handedly resurge the offense, or is this more of a Garrett Nussmeier issue, play calling issue, and everything else?
I still think this is a Garrett Nussmeier issue.
Yeah.
I feel like I don't want to speculate by any means, but I feel like this torso injury is hampering him a little bit more than he wants to admit. And honestly, we probably won't find out until the season's how bad it actually is. We usually don't until the season is over when we find out the true extent of these injuries. But you could just tell he's not the same Garrett Nussmeier he was last year. And I know there were some concerns last year about his ability to throw the football. But, I mean, when you have an injury, especially to your torso, I've had a few oblique strains that I've had to play baseball through back in high school, and those aren't really fun.
Exactly, especially when you're the quarterback or you're a baseball player or you're a golfer, when so much of your power comes through being able to anything torso related has to, just not only affect you mentally, but also affect the way that you go about your job and carry on your job. So that's the LSU side. How about the Vanderbilt side, though? Because you brought up 2 great points there. How long all of this has been.
Wow.
More than 170 straight games as an underdog against ranked opponents. The last time they were favored, you got to go back to the Eisenhower administration. 1948, 40-48 was the last time.
Wow.
And the third straight versus ranked teams here. This is, to me,
it's shocking.
It's very. It is. And I think it's shocking on 2 levels. Number one, it's been that long. Just the fact that, because I would have thought maybe at some point in the James Franklin years, they would have been a favorite in one of these games. Now that they are, though, and we talk about teams with rankings and just what it does psychologically to a football team, and sometimes we have seen teams get inside the top 15 that weren't ranked maybe 3 weeks before, get inside the top 15, and those are teams to automatically fade because you know, like, oh, they've never been there before. Do you think this is a time to fade Vanderbilt as the favorite because they just haven't been in this position since '78 and the first time since LSU since the '48?
You know, there's every reason to fade Vanderbilt in this game. And honestly, I was thinking about it this morning. I was like, you know, I almost want to put a bet on this game, and I was gonna put it in favor of LSU, and I was thinking of LSU -6.
Yeah,
I think that's what I thought earlier, but then it started to sink in, and I'm like, no, I can't do that. Clark Lee's got this team in a really good spot. And,
he does.
You know, they're gonna come out amped up, especially off that open week, and I think they can get it done.
Absolutely right. Yeah, right now I just trust Vanderbilt more than I trust LSU, especially offensively. We got a chance to hear from Vanderbilt head coach Clark Lee on this matchup there in Nashville.
Excited for the week. Good to be back at it. I thought we had a energetic bye week and a team that is excited for the challenge ahead on Saturday. It's good to be back home. And, you know, this is a great SEC matchup and a great opportunity for us to you know, compete and play in front of our home crowd. So we're looking forward to that. Obviously, the challenge is real. LSU is a really good team. They're well coached. They've got good players, good schemes, good systems. And so, you know, we'll have our hands full that way, but we're hard at work on how to best attack them and understand what they do well and what their weaknesses are and put our best effort on the field on Saturday.
So you heard Coach Lee talking about the weaknesses for this LSU team. One of those weaknesses has been turnovers. Got a chance to hear from Brian Kelly about what they need to do this weekend to erase those mistakes.
I mean, we all watched the game. I was pleased with some things that we did that we hadn't been doing. We ran the ball with much more effectiveness, right? We got the ball to Trades Green. I was pleased about that. But certainly, you know, you can't get down on the 1 yard line 3 times and come up with 3 points. And I think we all know that. But what I loved was our compete. I loved the way our guys competed for 4 quarters. Our fans stayed in there with us. Look, it is what it is. Find a way to win. And tonight, we found a way to win, even though we had some mistakes out there that could at some time be catastrophic, and we're going to have to eliminate them. But the bottom line is I love the way the kids competed today.
The line opened 2.5, Andy. It is still at 2.5 right now. Get those bets in now. That line might fluctuate between now and Saturday. Kickoff's up for 11 a.m. in Nashville. Coming up next here on Southeast Sports Plus, we talk to our good friend Mariah Ross over in Spartanburg, South Carolina, about the game. Welcome back to Southeast Sports Plus. Lots of great college football action in store this weekend. Some teams looking to get back on track. That includes the South Carolina Gamecocks. We are pleased to be joined by our friend and new aunt, Mariah Ross. Mariah, tell the good people the news here of your new nephew.
Yes, my brother and sister-in-law just had my first baby nephew last night, 11:29 Pacific time. So, early on last night. 8 pounds 9 ounces. I got a big old baby nephew, but I cannot wait to get my hands on him, and we'll be doing so in about a month. So
that's awesome.
Very exciting. Very exciting stuff.
And there should be like a statue of you, something, because this baby is partially named after you.
Exactly. His name is Gerhard, and it actually means wished for child. And, my brother and sister-in-law were trying for a while, and, that is absolutely what he is. So we are very grateful he is here. And like I said, just cannot wait to get my hands on that big old baby.
Absolutely. Super happy for you and your family. Congratulations, Aunt Mariah. And you have to let us know if Gerhard has a specific name for you, because that's what we'll be calling you from here on out.
Yes, I'm excited. I'm excited to see it, whatever it is.
I love it. Oh, South Carolina, your hometown team played LSU this past weekend, or played LSU, and obviously lost the football game 20-10. As you take a look at what South Carolina is this year and what they've been able to do, because we've seen the ups and downs throughout the course of the season, what do you make of this football game and this LSU game? Because obviously we knew going into it was going to be very tough, but it was a very competitive game, at least on the scoreboard.
Right. And I think for, the entire South Carolina coaching staff and for a lot of us watching the game, it was a very winnable game. Beamer said when you win the turnover battle, when you rush for almost 200 yards, when you win the time of possession battle, you should win the game 9 times out of 10. And, the Gamecocks certainly had opportunities to do so. But as we have seen basically all season long, they have a way of beating themselves, specifically with penalties, which is something that I feel like we talk about every week, basically, on this program. The fact that they had 13 total, 6 of them were pre-snap penalties, and 5 of them were on the O-line. So Beamer said, the frustration level is high when it comes to that. But obviously, as we did see on Sunday, they made a change to the offensive line coach. They're going with Sean Elliott, who is the run game coordinator, the tight end coach, but he is an offensive line coach in the past. So hoping that just a new voice in there will create some change and hopefully limit some of those penalties, just so you can give yourself at least a chance in this conference.
One of the big things about this football team has always been the quarterback, Lenore Sellers. Obviously, he got knocked out a few weeks ago early in the season. What have you made of him? Because the stats don't necessarily blow you away and the offensive numbers don't blow you away, but it seems like the leadership is still there in a lot of ways, whether it's tangible or intangible.
Yeah, I think that's correct. His leadership, he's only stepping up, obviously just a redshirt sophomore, so he's still continuing to grow. But like you said, the numbers are not quite there. And I think that does also go back to not just the O-line, but the entire offense and the fact that, maybe tight ends aren't necessarily helping out when it comes to blocking up front. Maybe a receiver who, they have a lot of talented receivers, but it's a young group and maybe they aren't necessarily in the right place, maybe not running the right routes. The run game we did see really improve in this LSU game, but it started off a little bit slow. So obviously you have to look at Lenore Sellers and, you need him to get the ball out a little bit faster. Yeah. He could make better decisions and make better throws at the end of the day, but it also is a full offense that needs to come together as they're going on this season.
Absolutely. And I know 10 points is nothing to write home about offensively, but you mentioned it, rushing for nearly 200 yards in the football game. Talk a little bit about that running game and what they've been able to find here over the last few weeks that might be able to carry them forward.
They've been able to find freshman Matt Fuller and get him the ball. We did see he scored that one touchdown, the sole touchdown that they had in the game. It's the longest play from scrimmage, if I've looked up the correct information, 72 yards for Matt Fuller. And he really kind of emerged at the end of the Kentucky game. But it was interesting. In Shane Beamer's press conference yesterday, he said he had that long touchdown and then didn't get the ball back for 16 to 17 plays. And when you hear something like that, that sounds like an issue. If a guy is being really successful and, is kind of the engine on that offensive side of the ball, he should be getting the ball a little bit more. And so I think that's something that they will be doing moving forward. Obviously, Rasul Faison had a great game as well. Oscar Agaway does his role and has his part in it. But if they could get the ball to the guy who is kind of being the engine and being the workhorse at the time, I think that's an adjustment they will make going forward in the season.
Absolutely. That offensive line doing a good job, obviously opening up the holes for this great running game. We got a chance to hear from head coach Shane Beamer on the guys up at the front.
Yes, if I was Oklahoma, I would go back and study every game that Sean had as the head coach at Georgia State, every game that he coached here as the offensive line coach, and every game that he coached at App State. And that's a good start for them and everything. Now, having said that, in all seriousness, certainly there's going to be things in the run game that he really likes that maybe we haven't been doing as much. That will, add. Certainly, we're going to add some things to the scheme, but we're also, you can't just blow everything up and say, okay, all of a sudden we're going to become a, whatever type team, and we haven't been doing it all season. So we're going to continue to do what we do, but there'll be some new, twist off of it. There may be one or two new schemes that he feels like he wants to implement. So there will be some schematic changes. I think more than anything, David, it's just a different voice in that room. Every coach is different. My style is different than Kirby Smart's style or Steve Spurrier as a head coach. Every coach is different, and you got to be who you are. And Lonnie Teasley's style of coaching is different than Sean Elliott's. Doesn't make one right or wrong. It's just different. So that'll probably be the biggest thing. Is just the coaching style, the voice in that room. There'll be some things that we've tweaked already, just in regards to some technique things and terminology of how we call some things that Sean's more comfortable with. So there'll be some changes. You can't blow the whole thing up, but definitely some schematic changes, and then just general coaching tweaks.
Mariah, it does seem like for a team that has lost now their third game in the SEC, he's still very, very confident and very, very hopeful for this team. One of the big things, obviously, about this team, we knew it going into the season, even though you had the Defensive Player of the Year a year ago, was how strong this defense was with all the guys returning. That's still a place where they can kind of hang their hat, though, throughout the course of the season.
Right. And to have 2 turnovers basically at the goal line sets you up for success. And when you have that guy right there, Dylan Stewart, who kind of got his feel for the season in the Kentucky game. I mean, he came out in that first drive, had a tackle for a loss, and then was able to put pressure on Garrett Nussmeier and ended up having the ball batted down. So we saw him come out and really show out, and the entire defense is playing really, really well, but it's kind of hard to be consistent when, it's not a full team effort, when the entire team isn't playing up to their potential and up to par. So they're lucky that they have that good defense right now, because I think it could have been a lot uglier of a game if they didn't.
Absolutely. From a mentality standpoint, when this team played Vanderbilt a few weeks ago, they were top 10 in the country and had, playoff aspirations. Where do you think this team is mentally right now? And not saying, obviously, if a run happens, things can happen. Three losses don't necessarily kick you out of the conversation altogether. But what do you think this team is overall from a mental standpoint, just knowing the margin of error is now paper thin?
Yeah, I mean, I think you said it earlier. Shane Beamer is still very confident in this team. He feels like they are still very close, and they have so much potential to be a successful team. He's said over and over again that they were 3-3 at this point last season. And then, we saw a loss to Alabama, but then they went on a run and won the last 6 games. So that is something that is still very possible for this team. It's just getting the right things to click and pushing the right buttons. And as for Sean Elliott, stepping into that offensive line coach role, he was across the line from the center all practice yesterday, screaming, yelling, clapping in his face, blowing the whistle, and just kind of doing everything he can to put pressure on the center and make it difficult for him. So they're really trying to eliminate, like I said, those pre-snap penalties that put them in tough positions to go forward and get wins. And, if you think about some of those penalties that they had, if those didn't happen, they have potential to go down and score, kick a field goal, do whatever they can to have more offensive production. And so I think eliminating those penalties is, a step. It doesn't fix everything, but that's where they should definitely start. And I think that is, the focus right now moving forward.
Absolutely. A tall task ahead this week with the Oklahoma Sooners playing great defense. John Mateer obviously feeling more confident going into his second game, coming off the hand surgery. What's been the overall talk about what they need to execute on Saturday to be able to pull off a win against the Sooners?
Well, as far as the defense and John Mateer, the focus is just putting as much pressure on him as possible. Obviously, they're coming off a loss to Texas, and so they'll want to come in guns blazing and, get right the ship for themselves. But I think putting the pressure on John Mateer and just making sure he doesn't get going is the focus on defense. As far as offense, it is, the same things, fixing those tiny mistakes that they have and just lean a little bit more into the run game, which has been successful for them, and, hope that Sellers is making the corrections that he needs to make, making the throws that he needs to make to put them in winning positions.
Absolutely. Of course, every time we have you on, we like to get a little a talk about Clemson. I feel like the ratio has gone from about 50-50 to about 80-20, so let's squeeze in that 20% here with the Clemson Tigers, a team that had national championship aspirations at the beginning of the season. They've picked up a couple of nice wins, got a win over Bill Belichick, but who doesn't? And they also got a win over Boston College there as well. Where do you see this team after a couple of wins and Dabo, now trying to turn the ship against with a really good team as now SMU comes to town?
Yeah, well, it's their first time getting back-to-back wins all season, so obviously that is
a
good feeling.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a good feeling, but not a super high bar. They are playing an SMU team, like you said, has been playing really well. They have not lost a regular season ACC game since joining the league.
Wow.
So they're going to be a tough opponent heading into Death Valley. But obviously getting those back-to-back wins, kind of seeing your offense and your defense work together to create a win is absolutely something that's just going to spark this Clemson team. But, let's be fair, like you said, they beat Bill Belichick, who hasn't at this point, and they beat Boston College, who was 1-4 when they came into the game. So I wouldn't be, waving the pom-poms quite yet, but it's going to be a difficult game, and I think it'll give us a little bit more answers to see where Clemson is at this point when they face SMU this Saturday.
What's it?
And I will be at the game, so excited to go to a Clemson game this weekend.
What's it that they do? They circle the O, right?
They do. They circle the O, little expletives in between, and then N. Yep.
So is it because I follow them? Well, I follow a lot of football teams on Instagram.
Yeah, of course.
But I saw. Were their fans really celebrating the win over Boston College like that much?
Clemson fans are a special breed of people, and they certainly were. I was seeing comments and questions of, "Oh, how many votes do you think they got?" And it's. Yeah, people were very excited after that Boston College win. But again, I think we will see where they really stand after this SMU game. But yeah, Clemson fans are diehard. They're right there.
Yeah, gotta love it. And you'd rather have that than the opposite.
Yeah.
You'd rather have that than
100%.
people who just don't care unless you're winning a national championship. And that's
right.
Better than losing to Boston College too.
Exactly.
Absolutely. That would have been scary. Would have went off the rails, I think.
That line as it sits right now, Clemson's a 9.5-point home favorite over SMU. And as Mariah said, SMU has not lost a conference game, so this line might be begging you to take SMU. We'll see.
Was the last Clemson home game the Syracuse game?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, because they were
on
off.
the road. Yeah.
Then they clobbered Bill Belichick, and then they clobbered Boston College. So it's kind of their get back game.
So we're gonna have you replicate, if they do win this game, we're going to have you replicate just how crazy they are about this win, because I can imagine a win over Boston College is one thing, a win over SMU.
ACC championship rematch. I forgot about that.
Exactly. And
right.
I will get the in-person experience of the fans, so I will absolutely fill you in on how it goes. It could go either way. I think it'll be a tough game for them, but like I said, after getting those back-to-back wins, it almost feels like the momentum is going in their favor now. So,
absolutely.
Right, but before we let you go, I've had a question about this since we originally talked about it ahead of the season about Clemson allowing alcohol to be sold. Have you noticed a difference at all in the stadium?
I haven't actually been to one of the games yet.
Oh, okay.
This will be the first one.
Yes,
okay.
It will be my first game of the season for Clemson. But again, I will fill you in on all of the things after this Saturday.
Because I know we talked about how they just go out at halftime and then just
Yeah,
come
just,
back in.
come
So
back in,
I'd be
yeah.
interested.
Yeah, so we'll see
if there's any difference.
We'll get Mariah's both figurative and literal buzz about what's going on there at Clemson. One final thing, I hate this thought that just popped in my head. Has there been any talk at all? Because playing SMU, obviously, Rhett Lashley, the talk about hooking, about maybe him moving on to Arkansas. Has there been any talk at all? I haven't heard much, but maybe you have, about Beamer's possible future there at South Carolina, whether it's in South Carolina, maybe Blacksburg. Any talk there this past week or a couple weeks?
I have not heard any more talk about that. No.
Same.
And I think he really just tries to keep his focus on the next game, the next practice, the days ahead. So he kind of avoids those questions. But no, I haven't heard any talk about that as of late.
Good deal. Perfect stuff. Our favorite aunt on the program, Aunt Mariah, first off, congratulations. Give your best to our family, and thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. See you guys next week.
Absolutely. Mariah Ross out of Spartanburg, South Carolina, new aunt. I know that feeling. I know that feeling when you have when your sibling has a child, a new child that they welcome into the world, and it's not yours, but you literally celebrate it like it's yours because you can do all things that the grandparents do. You can spoil the child, you can give them all the candy, and the next thing you say, you give them back to mom and dad on a sugar high.
We just got news of one right here at the station yesterday with
That's
Akivia.
exactly right. Akivia William McFarland and Theo. Congratulations on the baby Yanni,
Yanni,
the newest member of the WKRG family. So happy for Akivia, Theo. Happy for Mariah as well, and all the new additions inside the family. Keep it with us right here on Southeast Sports Plus. We will catch up with Josh Dobbs, former Tennessee quarterback, on the third Saturday in October. Welcome back to Southeast Sports Plus. We are gearing up for a huge weekend in college football. Great games all across the slate in the SEC. Of course, you got Ole Miss, Georgia, but you also have the third Saturday in October. Patrick, a big one between Alabama and Tennessee.
Yeah, I mean, I think I talked about this on the show yesterday. I just remember that knuckleball going through the uprights back in 2022 when Tennessee knocked off Alabama at home. But, it's going to be a great one here this weekend. Two high-powered offenses, and I'm going to look towards the quarterback battle and see who can come out on top.
Absolutely. And speaking of quarterbacks, we have a former Tennessee quarterback joining us here on Southeast Sports Plus. Josh, great to see you. First of all, let's talk about what's going on right now. The football world seems to be really, really good. You and your teammates off to a really nice start there in New England.
Yeah, it's been going well. Appreciate you guys having me on the show this week. But yeah, it's been going well. We're taking things at a week at a time up here in Boston. Obviously, we came off a great team win down in New Orleans, and we got another big matchup coming up this week. We got to go to Tennessee and play the Titans. Definitely some old history between a couple people up here in New England, and we're just excited for another opportunity to go out to compete and keep this thing rolling in the right direction.
Absolutely. As a player like you that has been in the fire, so to speak, in the SEC and in the NFL, how impressed are you with what Drake May has been able to do over the first few weeks of this season and over the course of his very young career?
Yeah, it's been definitely very impressive. I think it's been great to see the progression that he's had from OTAs to mini camp through camp, improving and to now playing really good football as we're going to fall and really coming into the crunch time of the season. So we as a team, we're definitely growing together. We're starting to hit our stride. We're just trying to improve each and every week, and that's why I've enjoyed about going to work here every single day and every single week. It's just guys hungry to go out, play, improve, be the best versions of themselves, both on and off the field. And I think that's showing in the outcome and results that we're getting on Sunday. And now the key is to never get complacent, keep working, and keep that same intensity so we can keep going out playing good football each and every Sunday.
One of the big things about you and your background is just how much you have going for you outside of football, and I know Tennessee gave you a lot of that as well. Just being and I know I probably don't want to brag about yourself, but I'll brag about you. Just being as smart as you are and having so much of a future outside of this game. How important is it to you to kind of keep everything in balance, to be able to keep football in balance and to be able to keep all of your interest outside of the gridiron in balance as well?
Yeah, I think I appreciate you bragging on me. I'll never turn down a compliment for sure. I think for me, it's just always just do what you love.
Yeah.
I played football since I was 5 years old, and I love to compete and play quarterback and be involved in the team atmosphere. And I love every aspect of what makes the game of football so great that fans and players and coaches all love. And also, at the end of the day, I got other things that I love and interested in. I spent a lot of time in the library studying aerospace engineering, so I definitely love aviation and have enjoyed the opportunities I've gotten off the field due to that interest. And at the end of the day, I got a lot of passions, but for me, um, the first thing of great priority right now is football and my career and being the best teammate and player that I can be for the Patriots. So I'm enjoying this journey. I've enjoyed every step of the way, and I've been blessed to have a lot of cool experience as well off the field because of my other interests. And we're just taking this thing one day at a time, that's for sure.
Josh, going back to your studying days over in Tennessee, what stood out to you the most about your playing career for the Vols and has kind of stuck with you today?
Yeah, I think just playing at the University of Tennessee, was much more than I could have ever have expected, honestly, from my football career. My parents didn't play sports growing up, but I grew up in Atlanta, which is like obviously SEC mecca of sport. And so I grew up watching all the big games, Tennessee versus Florida, Tennessee versus Georgia, and obviously the biggest one of them all coming up this weekend, Tennessee versus Alabama. And when I stepped on campus at Knoxville, I walked into Neyland Stadium. I walked around campus. I felt the energy of what it's like to be a Tennessee Volunteer. I knew that I wanted to go to school there, and I wanted to be the best player that I possibly could every single day. And so stepping on that campus, being a part of those great rivalries and those great games and having success really has propelled me into my professional career, both in the NFL and off the field in my endeavors that I get into.
You teed that up perfectly. Talk a little bit about that third Saturday in October and just how big this is for the fan base, for the guys that wear that orange, and for what this rivalry has become, especially here lately when Tennessee has won some and Bama's won some.
Yeah, I think it's the best rivalry of them all. Everything really kind of culminates to the third Saturday in October. Both teams are playing their best. They've had a chance to knock the rust off. Usually both teams have had their bye week, so they feel rested and ready to go. And it really captures what we all love about SEC football. It's the best on the best, prime time on Saturday. I think that's why it's so cool what Dr. Pepper is doing, being a part of this game and really emphasizing that fan experience is because as us Vols love to do, we love to talk about our Vols and wear our orange. And it goes the same with that team down there in Tuscaloosa. So being able to bridge the gap between Tuscaloosa and Knoxville, being able to provide that fan portal will be a extremely unique touch on what I think is the greatest rivalry in college football.
Absolutely. Let's talk a little bit more about your partnership there with Dr. Pepper and being able to provide this really great moment there for those fans.
Yeah, I think, as I said, it's very unique. The fan portal, it's going to be really cool to have two live streams going, one in Knoxville and one in Tuscaloosa, one literally right next to the stadium down in Tuscaloosa, and one at one of my favorite spots during my time as a student on campus in Knoxville at Cool Beans. And just allowing the fans to be themselves, show their school spirit, maybe talk a little smack before the game, get some predictions going. But the live stream, I think like that aspect of it is what's extremely unique and a great touch on this great rivalry. And I'll be sure to make sure our fans are well represented and showing those guys down in Tuscaloosa what Tennessee Volunteer football is all about.
Absolutely. Final thing is, are there any like in-house bets there between your teammates in different locker rooms between Alabama and Tennessee players, and just how deep does that rivalry go as soon as they go to the pros?
There always is. We try to keep it friendly.
For sure.
You don't see me in crimson much, so there's some jersey wagers that go on. But I always say I got plenty of Josh Dobbs jerseys to be rocked on Monday. So whoever wants to wager, I'll definitely have them on deck because I think the good guys are going to go down to Tuscaloosa. It's going to be a hard-fought game. They're still really good. We're really good. I think there'll be a lot of points scored on Saturday. But I think the team in orange comes out victorious, and I'll definitely be rocking my orange on Saturday and cheering them on.
Absolutely.
Josh, real quick before we let you go, I'm sure you are so busy with watching film and everything. What have you made so far of the Vols quarterback and Joey Aguilar?
He's talented. Coming into the season, I know the Syracuse game was a big one that everyone had circled to see, and a lot was made out of it between the college football trade between UCLA quarterback for quarterback. But I've been really impressed. He's come in to the SEC environment. I know he's played a ton of football up until this point, but he's been making plays. And I think what's been even more impressive, we started games fast and he's been throwing the ball extremely well, but late in games, he's making plays. I know the Georgia game came down to the last play of the game, but he was making plays throwing the football on the road at Mississippi State with the cowbells going crazy. He's making plays into overtime. And so we're definitely going to need that magic on Saturday in Tuscaloosa, but I've been extremely impressed. I know all of Vol Nation, everyone's huge Joey Aguilar fans. They've been rocking his jerseys all across campus. Vol Twitter goes crazy every single Saturday for Joey. So as a former player, it's really good to see his success, and all of our hopes, dreams, and aspirations are in his hands this Saturday as we go to Tuscaloosa. So we'll be cheering him on from afar and hoping for a good game from the kid.
Yeah, you know it as well as anybody. Being QB1 there for the Vols, this is a different life altogether. Josh, thank you so much for your time, and thank you to Dr. Pepper as well for providing such a great fan portal there for all the fans enjoying the third Saturday in October.
No doubt. Appreciate y'all. Go Vols.
Always great to hear from guys that played in this rivalry game, and special thanks to Josh Dobbs for his time. Coming up next here on Southeast Sports Plus, let's talk some overreactions. Of course, after every week in college football, we got to overreact before the next week. We have that coming up next. Welcome back to Southeast Sports Plus. Great to hear from Josh Dobbs. Basically, he's like this close to being an astronaut and a pro football player. He, like, of all the people that I'm jealous of in the world, he might be one of the top ones, just because he is so smart. And he like has this little side career as a quarterback in the NFL.
I mean, you just bring up a great point, because it's all right. You're the backup quarterback.
Yeah.
As much as he would like to be the starter,
For sure.
I go back to that 2023 season where he started out with the Cardinals,
Yep.
and he ended up knocking off my Dallas Cowboys,
Yeah.
and then got traded to Minnesota. And
Right.
he had that run where he was like, oh my goodness, like he could really blossom into this starting quarterback. But just the fact that he's so smart too,
Absolutely.
and so knowledgeable about literally anything.
Yeah.
Anything.
Yeah, he is, and it was great to hear from him. Obviously, he'll be rooting for the Tennessee Vols this week as they play Alabama in the third Saturday in October matchup. But before we move along here, let's get to some good stuff here. Our overreactions going into another big week.
You want to kick this off, or you want me to?
You know what? I kick it off last time. You kick it off.
All right,
this
I'll
time.
kick it off this
Yeah.
time. Here we go. Week 8 overreactions, my Flamin' Hot Wings
Oh.
picks. James Franklin, welcome to Fayetteville, my guy.
Wow.
I
okay.
said this yesterday on the show, and I'm a firm believer that the crew over there in Arkansas, they're going to make a very large push. There was so much talk about Rhett Lashley coming over from SMU. And I feel like the fans are kind of mixed. They have mixed feelings about it. I don't think that's going to happen. I could honestly see, now that James Franklin doesn't have a job, him going down to Fayetteville and kind of taking over that Arkansas program.
And it's like you said, because there is a stipulation in his contract that he has to be actively searching for
Correct.
a job, either in coaching or in the media. It makes this job very intriguing, because I believe you put the cap was at $8 million.
$8 million. But something that we also found out after we did a little bit more research is, if he makes more money than $8 million
Right.
a year, he
Yeah.
actually owes Penn State the difference.
It's the kind of the strangest, weirdest buyout situation I have ever heard. So even if he's just flirting with Arkansas, I would not be a bit surprised if over the next few weeks we hear Franklin and the Razorbacks job go hand in hand. Now, that might be his agent working in the background,
Right.
and just floating this thing out there, and I don't know how much it is, but I'm with you. I think it's a great fit for him if he actually wants to lead them into 2026.
Arkansas just needs a guy to bring the program back up again, and that's exactly what he did at Penn State. But
Don't hate
moving
it.
right along
Don't
here, I think Texas, they're going to use that Red River rivalry win and build some momentum. I mean, the defense looked great outside of the first drive of the game.
Yeah.
First 2 drives of the game. I'll give Oklahoma that. I mean, outside of that, John Mateer looked like he was back at Washington State playing in the Pac-2.
Yeah.
And then just looking ahead, Arch Manning, he actually played pretty well.
Played pretty well. Yeah, I mean, he didn't blow anybody away, and obviously they only scored like 23 points in that game. This was the only game I bet all weekend. Was the
I did too.
It was Texas. And I bet Texas. I really like Texas. I even got Texas. I think it was -2.5 is where I ended up getting them, and I still liked it at the time. Anything under a field goal, and it was mainly because, like you talked about with John Mateer, I just did not believe that he would go back to what he looked like in the Auburn game going into that Texas game. But I think it can do 2 things. It can give John Mateer credit, or give him a lot of confidence. Hey, this hand is fine. I can do what I need to do. And like you said in your hot take, I do think it's got a chance to give Texas a little bit of a run.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like they'll just end the year off strong. They're going to build towards next year at this point. But I mean, you can't rule out a possible college football playoff bid.
Yeah.
And finally, Vanderbilt is taking down LSU.
Wow.
Vanderbilt is going to do it.
Wow.
I have determined. I have done a full 180 from when I walked in this building today, and now I believe Vanderbilt's going to win.
For the first time since 1948.
48 against LSU when they are favored.
Vandy's favorite over LSU, and Patrick thinks that they're going to close the door on them there in Nashville. I don't necessarily hate it. I had to think about it a little bit between now and Saturday. I think this will be a game, I bet, but I got to think about it a little bit, because I'm not quite sure on that one.
Okay.
I'm not sure. But I do like your hot takes overall. All right, so here's my flame broiler takes. If you've noticed if you watch the show, periodically as throughout the last few weeks, I have a little bit of a theme with my Heisman House picks. And usually, it's a guy out of the SEC who's playing pretty well. And right now, welcome to the Heisman House, Marcel Reed.
And he's going to be off of it next week. At this rate, it's whoever you put. Welcome to the Heisman House. They fall off.
Yeah, it was Ahmad Hardy last week. Obviously, he had a good game, not a great game there against Alabama. They were prepared for him. It's Marcel Reed this week, 16 completions, more than 200 yards. The biggest thing, though, and Patrick, you know this about the Heisman, a lot of times it ends up going to the best player on one of the best teams. And right now, that looks to be Marcel Reed, the quarterback there with the Aggies. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, as much as I want to, I think I'm starting to turn a corner here with A&M too, because I made the 8-4 joke. I've made it more times than Texas A&M fans want to hear, but I might be dipping into it a little bit here.
I think a lot of people have to start doing that thing with Clemson. You know, Clemson they shattered what everybody thought of Clemson as a 4-loss team. Maybe Texas A&M on the verge of doing that. I got to explain this next one. The L in lies equals the L in loss. The L in lies being Kirby Smart, you were not calling a timeout. You weren't. You weren't calling a timeout, and the football guys, they don't like that. The football guys are not going to be able to reward somebody twice for saying they're calling a time, for saying they were clapping. I'm clapping. I'm not calling a timeout. I think because of that, Ole Miss will come away with the big win over Georgia because the L in lie equals the L in loss 7 days later. And Tennessee is looking more and more like a Big 12 football team, if I could ever see one, because you remind me of the old days of Baylor, Oklahoma State. Back in the day, those teams would put up basketball scores as far as offense goes, but the defense has been awful, and this defense has just not been good right now so far for Tennessee. Right now, first in the league as far as scoring points, dead last in the league as far as giving up points. But just like our buddy Sam Granville talked about it yesterday, they are creating turnovers.
Yep.
They lead the league in sacks right now, so can that be sustainable? I'm not sure, but as of right now, the Vols looking a little bit more like a Big 12 team.
I think I posed the question at the beginning of the year that what would it mean if Tennessee had a great defense? Because I had a feeling going into the year that Josh Heupel was going to get Joey Aguilar right. And well, I mean, you look at that. Mm-hmm. They're a really good offense.
Yeah.
But just not a really good defense.
They're not a good defense. And they, to be fair, they've been hampered by injury. Yep. I mean, their two starting corners go out before the Georgia game. Some linebackers have been out as well. So, yeah, this has been a team that's been plagued by some injuries. But you're right. They don't look good right now. But the offense, of course, keeping them afloat.
Yeah, and I mean, just looking ahead here this week, this is a great opportunity for not only the offense to keep on rolling. I know Joey Aguilar kind of suffered a little bit of an injury scare last week running into the Arkansas communications box, which there are some mixed reports about if he actually did knock out the communication system a little bit. But for that defense, too, against Alabama, I mean, you look at Ty Simpson, arguably the front runner for the Heisman. I know he sits in second right now, but I mean, you've got to be able to get to the quarterback, and that's been a problem for Georgia as well. If you look over there in Athens, they haven't been able to get to the quarterback. So I believe if Tennessee is able to turn it around, get some pressure on Ty Simpson, that defense could turn a corner this year.
Yeah, we'll see if they're able to do so. They got a great chance this week against Ty Simpson and company coming in for the third Saturday in October. We will soft launch a new segment here on our program and so much more next here on Southeastern Sport Plus.
Outbound transmission?
Affirmative.
Crew ready?
Check.
Signal lock?
Check.
Downstream stations online?
Linked and locked.
Let's light this candle.
Flame on.
In 3, 2, roll show open.
In our neck of the woods, sports is tradition. Sports is passion. Sports is family. Sports is fun. Welcome to our house. This is Southeast Sports Plus Live with Simone and Gerhard Mathangani.
Hour number 2 of Southeast Sports Plus, and we start where College game day will be. Ole Miss and Georgia. And Trinidad Chambliss, who's been the quarterback for this Ole Miss football team, they had to really sluggish start against Washington State. They do end up pulling off the win. However, some questions loom as they now get ready to go to Athens, Georgia, between the hedges against the Georgia Bulldogs. It is the top 10 matchup there in Athens. I am Gerhard Mathangani, joined by Patrick Walsh here on Southeast Sports Plus. And Patrick, it was one of those games where I knew I was not going to commit every down to that game.
Yep.
But every time I looked at the scoreboard, I was like, what in the world is going on? I had that game on mute, and I was watching Ole Miss and Washington State. And the very first thing I thought of after the game ended, Ole Miss came away unscathed as far as losses go. But one thing I thought was, I wonder how much this team was looking ahead to Georgia next week. I mean, it just felt like it the entire game, but also, too, it felt like that at halftime they weren't able to necessarily get over the hump. Give the Cougars a lot of credit, but I feel like some of this Ole Miss team is looking forward to this Georgia game for a long time.
Yeah, and I was talking with David Edelstein last Friday about this game, and going into that day, I remember I was doing the research on the game, and I saw Ole Miss was like a 36.5-point favorite.
Right.
And then I looked a little bit closer at this Washington State team, and, you know, that was one of the instances where I was like, man, Vegas has this all wrong. And I knew it was going to be a close game heading into it because it's, as you mentioned, there's the look-ahead factor to Georgia.
Right.
Washington State quarterback Zevi Eckhoff is – He hasn't really gotten that starting job for Washington State this year, as you can see him right there. But I remember David and I talked about this last week. Zevi played against Syracuse in the Holiday Bowl last year, and he looked pretty good. So it just felt weird, and it never felt like a game that could really get out of hand. I know Lane Kiffin had a funny thing that we cannot say word for word on the air about Trinidad Chambliss. We'll paraphrase it for you. He basically wanted him to not do that Division II stuff anymore.
and I get the frustration. And to me, there was always going to be when you take a look at anything that goes up, that trends up. There's not always just an upward trajectory. There's always like an up and then a little bit of down, up a little bit of down. To me, this game against Washington State reminded me of a little bit of a pullback. Not necessarily the wheels are falling off, and not necessarily what we saw with Penn State, where, you know, it just seems that, like, you know, a team that you're supposed to blow out, you don't blow out. They're able to get the win. Ole Miss was able to get the win. And I do think, like I've said before, there's been debate if winning is a skill or not. I do think that it is a skill to be able to still walk away with a win. But how much do you think this carries over? Because like you said, Trinidad Chambliss, and you said it and Lane said it, Trinidad did not play well. How much do you think that Kirby Smart and company are feeding off that? Or do you feel like a bounce-back performance is in store for the young QB?
I feel like this was a one-off game where Trinidad just did not play well, and it was just one of those games where, you know, you don't have your best stuff. I mean, you look at baseball, it's all the time. Pitchers, some days they just don't have their best stuff, and I don't think Trinidad had his best stuff there against Washington State. The thing that concerned me isn't really anything about the game itself. It's the fact that the student section was pretty empty.
Yeah.
I get it was 11:45 a.m. kickoff,
Right.
and it was against Washington State, but still, you have a top 5 team in the country.
Yeah.
For the first time I'd have to do some research the last time Ole Miss was in the top 5.
Right.
In the rankings.
Yeah.
But I mean, show up for your team.
Yeah.
You had last week off as well.
Right, the week off, and you're going on the road to play Georgia, so this is the last chance to really catch them in about a 3-week window. Or maybe they're thinking, hey, let's just save this money and buy gas on the way to Athens, go get some nice beverages before we go between the hedges there. I thought so too. I thought it was really interesting because Ole Miss usually gets pretty excited about their football games, and it just felt like this one was a bit of a dud going into it. I don't know if that's the opponent or anything else, but we will see going into this week. And obviously, you mentioned that attendance there. We also got a chance to hear from Lane Kiffin there about the matchup.
Off the wall question, you and Kirby, probably some of the more demonstrative coaches on the field. Who do you think burns more calories in a game, you or him?
I don't know. That's a good question. I watched by the TV and saw his press conference today, so it don't look like he's burned too many calories. But he does have a lot of energy in the games, and he coaches really passionate. And I've given him heat before about the weight loss part. He says he's too stressed to work out.
That is classic.
Too stressed to work out.
That is classic. I get all those coaches. I mean, it does take a mental reframe to be able to like leave and go to the gym. And people are always asking, especially with coaches, like, hey, I mean, like literally your office is like 15 steps away from a weight room. Yeah. Like, I don't know how these coaches like aren't like, on the treadmill or whatever. But I do kind of get it from that perspective that, well, if every hour of your day is accounted for recruiting, game planning, practice and everything else, then you're just like, oh, the 11 o'clock is hit, 11 p.m., 12 midnight's hit, and you haven't gotten a workout. Then the next day comes. But as we learned in the documentary, Lane Kiffin says, hey, this is a priority for me. So he puts his yoga or his hot yoga. His hot yoga already in there. And you're telling it, you could tell it's made a difference as far as not only just the way that he looks, but also the way that he feels and carries himself there as well. But I found it funny him needling Kirby because like he said, he's known Kirby for a long time. They were in Tuscaloosa together.
Yeah, back in 2015 with that outrageously stacked coaching staff.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, I can't believe it's just coming back up now. The names on that coaching staff: Lane Kiffin, Dan Lanning as a grad assistant, Kirby Smart, Billy Napier. I mean, all these guys. It's just that was an outrageous year.
That's an unbelievable staff, and that's a good eye for Coach Saban being able to get guys like Dan Lanning, as you said, who was a GA there at the time, and the other offensive line coaches, defensive line coaches. I mean, they had a stacked coaching, and Saban's coaching tree is going to be one of the biggest we've ever seen in the history of football, whether it's college and or pro football there as well. So that's the Ole Miss side. Let's go to the Georgia side as well. Georgia obviously coming up against a really emotional game against the Auburn Tigers this past week. I feel like both these teams are coming in from different perspectives. They both got a win. They probably don't like the way they played in the game where they got a win, including the Georgia Bulldogs.
No, and you can see it right here. It was just a gritty win for Georgia in a game where it was one of those weird, scrappy college football games, one of those games that reminded you of the early 2000s where like one of those like 7-6 finals.
Yep.
But yeah, I think going back to last year's game as well, that's got to weigh into this whole feel against Ole Miss. If you can remember, those Ole Miss fans carried the goalposts out of the stadium. But I didn't actually remember how foggy it was.
Yeah. It was foggy as all get out. Like that was such a weird game as far as atmosphere goes. I mean, a great atmosphere in the stadium, but no, you're right. There was a lot of fog and conditions you don't typically see here in the Deep South.
Yeah, I mean, you could see it right here. It was just nothing but chaos after the game. But even in this picture, you could still see that it's not fully clear. And I think there in the background too. It was just one of those weird games where it's just like, the weather isn't great, but you find a way to get it done. And unfortunately for Kirby Smart, it was one of those games where the Bulldogs were not able to get it done. But I look at this weekend's game, and I could honestly see this this is going to determine, in my opinion, who goes to the SEC championship. I think one of these teams do go to the SEC championship. I made the call last week about, the winner of Oregon, Indiana is going to go to the college football playoff.
Right,
and I still stand by that. But looking at this, Ole Miss on a heater right now, kind of had a minor slip up last week, and then Georgia is really just building off the Alabama loss. And Kirby Smart, he'll find a way to get it done.
Absolutely. Does this give you any pause, going back to Ole Miss very, very quickly? Ole Miss is 6-0. And let me give you their home wins. Georgia State, Arkansas, Tulane, LSU, 24-19, and Washington State, 24-21. If you're counting, that is 5 games they've played at home.
Yeah.
Does it concern you the one game they've played on the road is at Kentucky, and they won that game by a touchdown, 30-23. This is their second time on the road so far this season. I didn't realize that. I thought for some reason they had a non-conference game at a neutral site. They did not. They started with Georgia State, and they've had 4 straight games there at home. Any cause for concern for Ole Miss going on the road? It just seems like a really disjointed schedule.
Yeah, I mean, you could also look at Missouri's schedule. They haven't had to leave Columbia this whole year so far. And then you can also look down and in Miami, they haven't had to – they're not going to have to leave the state of Florida until November.
That's
ridiculous.
That's
I mean, come on. What are we doing here, schedule makers? But no, I don't really see any cause for concern. Kentucky has been one of those weird teams for Ole Miss in recent memory. I think the last 4 games have been decided by one score. It's just one of those games where it's like you'd expect them to win by more, but for some reason they just Kentucky just makes it a close game every time.
Right, and that Kentucky game, keep in mind that I believe let me pull that up. That was Austin Simmons that started that game, right?
Yes, that was the Austin Simmons game that he started, and then Trinidad came in when Austin got that foot injury.
Right. So this won't be a completely new environment for Austin, for Trinidad Shameless going into this matchup, because he has played on the road at least one time. We also got a chance to hear from Georgia head coach Kirby Smart there on Kewan Lacey and the Georgia Corners.
He becomes more effective because of the quarterback. He becomes more effective because of the tempo. They use tempo. They're able to go really fast. They wear people down. You get lots of snaps against them, and we've had a lot of practice getting lots of snaps, that's for sure, defensively. But they get lots of snaps, and they wear you down, and he's a good back. He's vertical, sideways, catches the ball, explosive, really good player. Yeah, there's some good and bad. I mean, Dalen had some good plays, and he had some tough plays where he ended up grabbing the receiver. He got out of position some, and same thing with Ellis, and same thing with DeMello. In this league, you're going to be challenged every week. These guys got great wideouts and a quarterback that can get them the ball, a quarterback that's very accurate. So the challenge will be every week to step up and play.
So the challenge for this week, the Ole Miss Rebels. College game day will be there. It will be, I think, what Indiana-Oregon was last week. I mean, the game that everybody's talking about. All eyes will be on Athens, Georgia, coming up this week. But now, let's do something new here.
Yes.
Patrick, you're always coming up with good creative ideas here. What's the latest one?
So I feel like we're at the point of the season where we can not really confidently see who's going to, make a run at these conferences. But we're at the point where we have enough games under our belt to where we can make some early predictions.
Absolutely.
And so we're going to bring you a new little game, contender or pretender. And the first team on our list is the LSU Tigers.
Gosh, this one is not hard, because all I can take, and like you said, there's enough data points right now to be able to make a true assessment. This game would have been really hard 3 weeks ago, because 3 weeks ago you're going on the possibility of what this team can be. And then you're thinking 4,000-yard quarterback, this defense is great. Well, now we have a lot of sample size. They've lost the game. I have nowhere else to put this but pretender. And nowhere else to put this but pretender. They have all the keys to be a contender. It's like when you see somebody who is like a bodybuilder and they're huge. Just because you have big muscles doesn't mean that you're strong, because it's two different types of training. You could train for big muscles by doing certain reps ranges and rest periods and all kinds of stuff to grow your muscle physically, but it takes strength to grow your muscle. As far as strength-wise, it takes heavy weights to be able to do it. Think of the same way with LSU. They look big. but I don't know if they're strong. So from my standpoint, they're a pretender.
Yeah, I mean, I've got to, as much as I hate to say it, I've got to stick with you here because the LSU was my preseason SEC winner.
Right.
But it just feels like Brian Kelly, he won the season opener for the first time at LSU.
Right.
And everyone thought that was going to be his signature win
Yeah.
to jumpstart this LSU season. Well, we've seen what Clemson has turned into.
Immediately watered down.
So, I mean, yeah, exactly. That doesn't really mean anything anymore. And then your first two home SEC wins were they were just strange. I mean, both 20-10 games. DJ Lagway threw 5 interceptions in the first one.
Right.
And then you were able to shut down Lenore Sellers at home to get the win over South Carolina. But this guy on the screen here, it's just it's been a mystery for him this year, and I know there were some questions heading into the season. All right, how effective is Garrett Nussmeier actually in these big games? He was able to put all of these numbers up last year, but what's he going to do this year heading into 2025? And it's just been a weird year. And as I mentioned earlier on the show, I have a feeling that torso injury is a little bit bigger than people are making it out to be.
I'm right there with you. And do you remember a couple of weeks ago when Brian Kelly got really defensive about with the reporter? And the very first thing coming out of a win, by the way, it was a win, was the question about the lack of production on offense. And he had that quip. He comes back and he is like, hey, you know what? Let's praise the guys that are here. They're over here doing work. They look good. Why don't we talk about the good things that are going on? I think the reason why we saw that defensive side of him is what is pouring out right now with this team offensively. They're just not able to score at that consistent clip. However, they have a great defense.
Yes.
And maybe that's enough to keep them in football games. But as of right now, I got to say pretender.
Yeah, and I mean, you bring up a point about that, him lashing out at that reporter a few weeks ago, and it almost reminds me of exactly what I said yesterday about Kirby Smart.
Yep.
You know, you don't do something, you get all defensive about it.
Exactly.
But that opening statement to that reporter, it just felt like he knew what he was going to say. He knew he was going to be asked about this. And then he immediately shuts it down, and he almost gives like a scripted response where he's just angry about it. And it's just, you know, it's interesting for him because apparently he might be in the running for the Penn State job as well.
Yeah, there's some rumors
out there. About it.
There are some rumors out there. I do think that it would be a shot to his ego if he can't win in the SEC, especially with the lines of coaches that have won their national championships. I mean, the last 3 coaches there have won national championships. So it'll be really interesting to see if that is a move for him. But no, you're right. There's a lot of people who think the winds could be blowing that way for him over there in Happy Valley.
And I mean, it was already a shot to his ego that he couldn't win at Notre Dame.
Exactly.
I'll leave it at that.
Right. And a shot to his ego, and Notre Dame goes on to win, or not win, but go
Marcus
on to play.
Freeman going and playing for the national
championship, and this close to actually winning that game over Ohio State last year. So that is contender or pretender. We'll play that as we get more data points throughout the course of the season. It's a good one there with LSU, because coming into this year, I think everybody would have said one word, contender. And now, at least for our take, it's the pretenders. Stay with us here on Southeast Sports Plus. We turn to the other side of the Alabama-Tennessee rivalry. We heard from Josh Dobbs earlier. Former Alabama running back Damian Harris also kind enough to join us here on Southeast Sports Plus. You'll hear from him next. Welcome back here to Southeast Sports Plus. We are gearing up for another big weekend in college football. One of the big games on the slate, Patrick, is a big one on the third Saturday in October. Of course, it means Alabama and Tennessee. It's obviously a really, really great rivalry, and once again, back in its familiar spot.
Yeah, we got the chance to hear from Josh Dobbs earlier, giving us one side of the rivalry. Now we're going to go to the other side, go to a former Alabama running back who I didn't realize he was a two-time national champion.
Yeah.
You know, I'm still trying to learn everything about the SEC, but man, it's an exciting time, and this rivalry, I want to go to it some year. I don't know if I can this year, but gotta try to do it at least once.
Absolutely. And without further ado, we welcome former Alabama running back Damian Harris on the program. First off, Damian, thanks more for your time, but also, too, before we dive deep into this Alabama-Tennessee rivalry game, let's talk about your time there in Tuscaloosa. You're from Kentucky, but you had a chance to play your college ball in T-Town. What do you remember of those days there in Alabama?
You know what I remember first and foremost? Ramajamas, where the the pepper portal is going to be. And I think about all the great times I had there. I think about all the fans that I saw there. I thought about how packed it was on game days because it's right underneath the stadium. You go get some good breakfast. You maybe have a drink or two or maybe 10 or 12. I don't know. It depends on how you like to do your game. But I think of Ramajamas, and now I look at what Dr. Pepper is doing with the pepper portal, giving out some free complimentary, maybe I'll use the word complimentary. Complimentary sounds better from a business standpoint. Complimentary Dr. Peppers and encourage the fans to come out, pour out their passion, be face-to-face with Cool Beans, a place in Knoxville where Tennessee fans will be. And it'll just be two fan bases pouring out their passion, cheering on their teams, repping their colors, be some former players there. I mean, that's what college football is about.
Absolutely.
That's what this rivalry is about. It's about the games being played. It's about the athletes. It's about the coaches. It's about the fans. When you talk about rivalries, it's about games that mean so much to the communities, to families. I'm sure there's some families that'll be, whether it is at Ramajamas, whether it's at Cool Beans, to where half the side is Tuscaloosa, Alabama fans, the other half is Knoxville fans, Tennessee fans, But Dr. Pepper does such a great job of bringing everybody together in a way that is encouraging, it's positive, it's in a way that where you can just be there for your own team and just show off your support. So it's a really awesome thing what Dr. Pepper is doing, and Ramajamas, again, when I think of Tuscaloosa, that's all I think about.
Damian,
outside of winning football games.
Yeah, of course. Damian, when you think about this rivalry and going back to your playing days, what stands out to you the most?
A speech that Nick Saban gave us one time. And this was, I'm sure he gave it every year, but this was probably my first time hearing it. He said, when you leave here, people are going to ask you three things. Did you get your degree? How many national championships did you win? How many times did you beat Tennessee? How many cigars did you, when you played at Neyland Stadium, did you have the Tennessee fans out by the second quarter or the third quarter? Or was it the first quarter? I mean, that is what this rivalry is about. That's what this game means. It's so important just because, like what I said earlier, this game means so much to our fans, to our boosters, the people that help make this NIL collective so big and support our respective programs. That's what games like these mean. So every time we get to the third Saturday in October, listen, X's and O's kind of go out the window. Obviously, when you go in and you play the game, they matter because you have to play a disciplined style of football. But X's and O's aside, you got to do whatever, and I'm talking whatever it takes to the University of Tennessee, because that is one of the biggest things you will be asked. How many times did you beat those guys?
For sure. This is a really interesting matchup this year with two new quarterbacks in this football game, with Ty Simpson playing just absolutely out of his mind here over the last few weeks. Joey Aguilar also playing really well as well. How do you see this version, the 2025 version of the third Saturday of October?
Well, I see this, believe it or not, as a defensive matchup, because when you look at both of these offenses, like you said, Ty Simpson has been lights out. He's almost been robotic with how successful he's been on the football field, using his arm and using his legs. You look at Jam Miller, you look at Ryan Williams, the possibility of having him show up and be an alpha. Jeremy Bernard, Isaiah Horton. Then you turn to the Tennessee side. You see Joey Aguilar, which he looked like he could have been on his way to a Heisman against Georgia in that game, if I'm not mistaken. He had a lights out performance.
Right.
And so when I talk about all of these offensive things, all of the weaponry, all of the good coaching from DeBoer to Heupel on the other side of it, what's this game going to come down to? Which defense can go out and get stops? Can Tennessee close passing lanes for Ty Simpson and make them more one-dimensional? Obviously, we don't know the availability of Miller. So can they make Alabama run the football to beat them? Vice versa. This Tennessee offense, they scored 50 points a game. While everybody's sitting here talking about Texas Tech's offense and how potent and dangerous they are, look at what Joey Aguilar is doing in Knoxville. Look at the amount of points up. They've got over 160 first downs on the season. They move the ball meticulously. They wear down defenses. Which defense is going to be able to stand up when they're tired, whether it be the third quarter, it might be the second quarter when that game-defining drive comes up where you have to get a takeaway from Joey Aguilar, where you have to force Ty Simpson to a 3-and-out, get his offense off the field, get the ball back. Which defense is going to be ready to stand up to that occasion? I think that's going to determine the winner of this game.
Got a score prediction?
I haven't thought about it too much, but off the top of my head, Alabama 31, Tennessee 17. It's Tennessee 20.
Okay.
It's hard for me as an analyst, as much as a homer as I'm going to be for Alabama right now. It's hard to expect this Alabama defense to hold a team that scores 50 points to under 20. Like that's going to be impossible. So I think that giving them 20 is respectful. And I think that, again, we were talking about the availability of Jam Miller. If he's back, you lean on that run game, because the last thing you want to do is just go in with an offensive game plan of we need to throw the ball 60 times. We've got to put the game on Ty Simpson's shoulders. No, let Jam Miller tote the rock like he has been if he's healthy and available, and start to wear some of that clock down. Do what Tennessee likes to do to other teams. Hold the ball on offense, meticulously drive it down the field, drive it through the red zone. That way, when the defense comes off the field, not only are they saying, man, we just gave up 7 points, they're also saying, damn, I'm tired too. I do not want to go back out. Offense stays on the field for 7, 8, 9 minutes so I can get my breath.
Absolutely. Damian Harris, thank you so much for joining us here on behalf of Dr. Pepper.
Thank you all.
So, Patrick, Damian thinks that Alabama will win this game, but he gave some respect to Joey Aguilar and this Tennessee offense.
Yeah, I feel a little bit intrigued by him thinking that it's going to be a defensive game.
Right.
I know we watched Alabama last weekend. It seems like they get off to these slow starts on the defensive side of things. They give up some big chunk plays. I know we saw that against Missouri. I believe they blitzed a couple times when they went up 14-0 on Georgia and gave Georgia some chances there. But, I really find it interesting with these two high-powered quarterbacks, Joey Aguilar, Ty Simpson, who could win the Heisman. We'll see here.
The odds are going up in his favor, and not if you're betting for him. You want to also go back down if you really believe in him. But yeah, no, Joey Aguilar is, in my opinion, this can be another statement game for him. He looked really, really good in the beginning stages of the Georgia game. I remember, I think you texted in our group chat how he was like 14 of 14 at that point.
Yeah.
14 of 17, 100-something yards. And then the Georgia defense really settled down. I think that if he can get off to a really nice start, quiet down the crowd at Bryant-Denny, you take away that home field advantage there that they had there in Alabama. That's why I think this is a really interesting matchup, because where does Josh Heupel go? Does Heupel try to run the ball to establish because they have 3 good running backs, or do you let Joey Aguilar just cook offensively with this passing game?
Yeah, I mean, you look at the other side. I mean, Damian Harris literally just said, what is the status of Jam Miller? We don't know yet. And him being a former running back himself, 2-time Natty champ, that's going to be a big factor in this game, seeing if whoever does pick up, if Jam Miller is out, to just be able to get the workload off of Ty Simpson just a little bit. I know we talked a little bit yesterday about how he targeted 9 different guys. He connected with 9 different guys. And so, just being able to spread the wealth is going to be very important.
It'll be really hard to defend this Alabama offense with Ty Simpson and company. Last little thing that I was thinking about when we were talking with Damian Harris was the fact that Dr. Pepper has done such a phenomenal job, not only with this fan portal, but also also at the same time, too, being able to help give college athletes NIL money. Former Alabama quarterback Bryce Young was a part of one of their marketing campaigns. We saw Quinn Ewers, former Texas quarterback, in the same role. They put in Jerry Jones. They put in Brian Bosworth, two guys that played college football before. So Dr. Pepper doing a lot of really, really good stuff here for not only the college football athletes, but also the college football fans. That fan portal, you can check it out there on their website. Special thanks to both Josh and Damian for their time this week here as we preview the third Saturday in October. Coming up next here on Southeast Sports Plus, we continue our preview of a big weekend in college football. Welcome back to Southeast Sports Plus, continuing here on hour number 2, and we are joined by our great buddy Parker Reed. We were catching up during the break. He's playing injured right now. He's playing sick. This might be his flu game here. And
yeah.
Thank you literally thank you so much for your time, man.
Yeah, this is like you said, MJ flu game. This is sometimes you got to perform when you're under the weather, and this is my time to shine.
I love it. Parker, well, we'll keep it quick and brief for you. That way you can save your voice for the good people there in Waco. This Texas A&M team, they just keep continuing to find ways to win, and they did it again this past week. There was a lot of talk about Florida after knocking off Texas the week before. What do you make now of this Texas A&M team as they are still unscathed and seemingly passing tests in very impressive fashion?
Yeah, I think they keep proving that this is a legit team, and you've seen all like I don't know if you guys have seen the posts of like X percentage to make the college football playoff, but Texas A&M just keeps rising up that list, right? So I think they're in a great spot right now, and that's exactly where they wanted to be before the season. I don't know if many thought that this would be the spot that they'd be in, but here they are, 7-0, and looking to just keep climbing. I think I don't know what more it's going to take for people to finally be like, oh, this team's legit. But they've done everything and then some to prove that.
Parker, I mean, you look outside the first 2 drives of the game, and the A&M defense was really able to shut down DJ Lagway in Florida. What'd you make of that performance?
I think they just really shored up a lot of the problems that they had in the first couple games. And you see the statistics right here, right? They kind of went back and forth in that first quarter, and it looked like, oh, this is going to be a shootout. But I don't think anybody wants to get in a shootout with this Texas A&M offense. So with the Aggies shoring it up on the defensive side, I think they really got to DJ Lagway, especially the pressure that they got on him to force him into some maybe quick decisions that he didn't want to make or didn't really let the play develop, which let Texas A&M's defensive backs. Des Ricks was targeted pretty early on in that first half, and they didn't really target him in the second half because they kept getting to DJ Lagway and forcing more pressure. And I think they did exactly what they needed to do to pull out that win.
Yeah, defensively, this team has just been on a real run here. I think there was maybe some questions coming out of the Notre Dame game where they gave up 40, but then, since then it's been single digits in just about every game. And just like Patrick said, you take away that first quarter and it's been lights out for this defense. What has changed since that Notre Dame game and the way that this team's able to play so effectively?
I really don't know that much has changed, at least in terms of their game plan and their approach. I think maybe we heard after that Notre Dame game that they were playing with a chip on their shoulder. I know that's kind of like a common saying that, oh, we're coming out this week with a new fire and new intensity, but you really saw that against Auburn and all those teams after that Notre Dame game. To really get this defense in a rhythm. And I think they've just been playing with that chip on their shoulder, and that's the biggest difference.
Yeah, there's a lot of teams still looking for RB1, or maybe RB1 gets hurt, like a situation like Alabama, but they're in Texas A&M. They have been able to find multiple guys to be able to run the football really well and really effectively. What do you make there of the run game and how it balances out with the young quarterback in Marcel Reed?
Well, now they're going to need some new guys to step up because Le'Veon Moss actually went down in that game with an ankle injury. And good news from College Station is Mike Elko said that this isn't going to be a season-ending injury, which is good for Le'Veon Moss because senior year, you would hate to see that guy go out on that kind of note. But they have multiple other weapons. Reuben Owens is a 5-star out of high school. Aggie fans have been really hoping to see him break out. He did break out in a few games, Mississippi State being one of them for that career high game. So he's going to be the lead back for these next couple weeks, and hopefully he can stay healthy because entering the year, we talked about the depth that this A&M running back room had and how much of a luxury that is. But then the luxury kind of turns to, oh, we might not have enough guys to produce if people just keep going down. And for a while, that's been the quarterback room for Texas A&M in the past few years. Now the running back room is testing that depth, and we'll see if those guys that are going to get added carries can really perform.
Absolutely. It's been next man up there in College Station. We got a chance to hear from Mike Elko about the depth there in his running back room.
We have a lot of really talented players. It's why we talk a lot about just being ready. Again, we always talk to the offense. Our guys will tell you I'm fairly blunt and honest when we have these conversations. Everybody wants the football, and so we go into last week with 5 tailbacks who all want the ball 25 times and all are probably capable of carrying it 25 times. But we can't do that, right? And so everybody just has to stay ready. And so, all of a sudden Lev goes down, and now Ruben's got to be the primary ball carrier, and then that opens up some carries for Amari and for Jamarian to get in there, and they give us some good runs. Amari converts a 3rd and short, Jamarian converts a 3rd and short, and then he gets into 4-minute offense at the end of the game, and now we're able to put in a fresh E.J. Smith out there, and we really trust his ball security, and he rips off some really good runs, and he's fresh and ready to go and ready to do his job the way he needs to. And so I think it's a credit to what Trooper Taylor does with that group, and I think it's just a credit to those kids that they just work and they're ready to go when their numbers are called.
So obviously the running back room has been really solid for this football team, but a consistent player all season long has been Marcel Reed. It feels like they're asking him to do just enough, not too much and not too little throughout the course of the season. Nearly 1,500 yards passing, and has been very efficient as well, and he's taking care of the football. what do you make of what Marcel Reed's been able to do so far this year, and how high is his ceiling, given that the defense is playing on such a good level and all the pieces around him are playing really strong football?
I think it's a match made in heaven in Aggie land. I think that is, you have somebody under center that has the talent to take over a game by himself, but it also relies on the people around him. And that's something he's been doing such a great job of, is not just relying on himself, which I think he had to do a lot of last year. And that's something that he just has the luxury of this year, is so many weapons, not only on the outside, but also in the running back room, and an offensive line that's played much, much, much better over the past couple of weeks to give him that amount of time to make those decisions. And I think he's been delivering. The only thing that, and Mike Elko said it, the deep ball accuracy, I think, is something that we've been waiting to see. And he's gotten better throughout the season as it progresses, but that's maybe the next step that he has to take in order to become in that upper echelon of players that are in college football right now.
Parker, it's a weird landscape of college football, as we all know, and especially after last weekend with the coaching carousel being in full swing.
Yeah.
Is there any concern over there in College Station that Mike Elko might leave the Aggies for, I don't know, Happy Valley maybe?
Yeah, right. I did see a few rumors that might happen, but that happens with every.
Right.
Matt Rule talked about it too. That just happens when you win football games, right? But I don't think that there's any. There's no concern about that. He's only in year 2. It's a great job in college football to be in the SEC. The resources that A&M puts towards football, I think there really should be no concern for Aggie fans, but also. They also thought that with their baseball coach, who ended up, Jim Schlossnagle, who ended up going to Texas, and they were like, I promise it's not going to happen. And then 2 days later, he's trading in the maroon and white for some burnt orange. So I think,
looking back, that's awful.
Yeah,
that's actually awful.
It's really bad. But I think, if anything, that'd be the only concern from my perspective, is Aggie fans may have been burned in the past, so they don't want to forgive too early. But I think they can trust Mike Elko ahead.
Well, I guess in that case, I think Steve Sarkisian's safe there at Texas, so he won't. He won't go over there.
I think he'll be good.
Springing forward to this upcoming week against Arkansas, this is a Razorback team that gave Tennessee just the business last week. Didn't come away with the win, but they looked good under Bobby Petrino. What's the message been this past week to the Aggies as they get ready to head over to Fayetteville?
Same message as the previous weeks. Just don't let your foot off the gas, and especially against Arkansas, unranked, but still not one of those teams that you should take lightly. And I think that's kind of how they're approaching this. Last year, this was the time when Texas A&M did take their foot off the gas pedal, and it just derailed their entire season. So are they going to bend and not break, or is it going to be a repeat of what happened last year? And I think this is the turning point where they really need to cement their start to this season, and they have a great chance to do that. And then they go to Death Valley. We're not even talking about Happy Valley anymore. We're talking about Death Valley. That's going to be such a good game in a few weeks.
Yeah, for sure. Speaking of the road, I erroneously said that you can't trust a young quarterback on the road, and I was right about Underwood, the quarterback from Michigan, when he went on the road to Oklahoma, and I kind of just took that narrative and carbon copied it to Marcel Reed. Not that he's talented enough. I just said I didn't see a young guy going to South Bend and being able to go get a win against Notre Dame. He obviously did, and he's looked good and looked really great ever since then. Now it's the first game back on the road since that Notre Dame game. Any cause for concern about this football team just, being at home for the long time and now going to hostile? I use that in the biggest air quotes ever because we don't know what's going on over there. Hostile environment there in Fayetteville.
I do think it's a good point to bring up that they've had a while since the last road test, and the biggest concern for Texas A&M football throughout the years is they just don't win games on the road that often, and I think they put that to bed with Notre Dame, where they snapped that streak of ranked road wins, but they shouldn't really treat this one as any different. I think they're not really treating it that different, but also you should be a little bit concerned going on the road. Obviously, this Arkansas team looking to upset a top 5 opponent should, they're going to be ready. I think that's the biggest thing in the maroon and white.
Yeah, okay, so ready is the key word. So I was going to ask do you think that we'll see what we saw with Ole Miss last week? Because I think just diagnosing it, you're just thinking, well, Ole Miss was looking ahead to Georgia, and they did so for 4 quarters, and Washington State just hung around and hung around. I guess you don't see that playing out there in Fayetteville?
No, I don't. I think they will be ready, but it is that same kind of thing. Don't look ahead to this LSU matchup in Baton Rouge, because it's easy to do that. A top 10 matchup, pretty much deciding who's going to be in that SEC title game. But this Arkansas game is also important because that ultimately decides if you're going to be competing for an SEC title. Like, all of these games matter in conference play. It's not just the ranked top 10, top 15 matchups. And a lot of teams, you've seen it across the country, a lot of teams get caught up in we're looking towards this big time matchup at home or on the road. And I don't see that happening this weekend. But crazier things have happened. I don't know. We'll just have to see on Saturday.
Yeah, you're certainly right about that. And a good message and a good talking point there for Coach Elko and the coaching staff, saying, hey, let's not be a cautionary tale for the teams moving forward, as this big game against Arkansas comes right before the game, as Parker mentioned, over there in Death Valley against LSU. Parker, thank you so much for playing injured, so to speak, and coming out, helping us out here, man. Save that voice, and thank you so much for your time.
No problem. I'll pop a few more of these and
get a sponsorship.
Sponsored by Pups. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Parker. Parker Ream joining us from Waco, and I would say, as being in this business, being in sports, one of the things you love the most, whether you are connected with that team or not from your childhood, is you want to cover a good football team. Yeah. You want to cover a lot of good storylines. And Parker right there, he's sitting with one of the best storylines in the entire country. A team, as you said, that has faltered over the course of a few years, still perfect.
Yeah, I mean, I wrote him off early in the year, and now I got to, walk back my words a little bit. But you definitely want to cover a good team.
Yeah.
When I was an intern in college for the we were covering the men's basketball team over at West Virginia, and I love Josh Eilert. He's a great guy, great coach. It just didn't work out for him at West Virginia, and there were some dark times, and it's definitely tough. But I mean, they've got something good going on. Over there in Texas.
They certainly do. Marcel Reed and company doing a really good job. Arkansas this week, then it's LSU, and as graphic that Patrick had earlier, Missouri, South Carolina, and then Texas, of course, to close out the season. Stanford also smashed in there as well. So the road ahead is very manageable for one of the top 5 teams in the country in Texas A&M. Keep it with us here on Southeast Sports Plus. More to come here on a Wednesday. Welcome back to Southeast Sports Plus. I have said for the longest time that my favorite month on the sports calendar is the month of October. And there's lots of reasons why. Coming from the South, playing football in the South, obviously it's the diehard right in the middle of the football season. You're right in the middle of high school, right in the middle of college. NFL is often going as well. But then if you love all the ancillary sports, let's just say that you're a baseball guy. If you're a baseball guy, it's the prime postseason in baseball.
Postseason.
If you're a basketball guy or a hockey guy, the season is about to start. The season has already started in the NHL. It's about to start in the NBA. College basketball is just around the corner. Even if you're a NASCAR fan, we're in the middle of the playoffs right now here in the state of Alabama, getting ready to host the Talladega Super Speedway this weekend in one of the playoff races. So I contend the month of October, the best sports month on the calendar.
Yeah, I mean, being a northern guy, I haven't really seen it down here, but the foliage up north this time of year, it really is cool. As you mentioned, baseball playoffs, but now we're starting to turn our attention a little bit to college basketball and just basketball in general. And, man, I cannot wait.
Exactly. I can't wait either. And there's a lot of interesting storylines going into this year, especially as it relates to the SEC. A year ago, 14 teams end up making the big dance.
Unheard of.
One of the craziest stats ever. It's the first time the league went to 16 teams. Only 2 teams did not make the big dance on the men's side. Of course, on the women's side, you obviously have South Carolina and other programs who have been kind of the benchmark for the women's side as well. But we'll stick to the men right now. The preseason poll is now out. Here's a look at the top 25. Weird to see North Carolina with the 2-something beside their name. But this is a North Carolina team that controversially got into the NCAA tournament. Now sitting there, I know, as a West Virginia guy, this is kind of a sore subject. But some of the usual suspects there as far as top 25 teams. Think of a team like the Creighton Blue Jays. Think of teams like Michigan here. What is the things that stand out for the teams that are inside that 20 to 25 ratio?
Yeah, I mean, I look at these 5 teams right here, and I feel like of these 5 teams, Michigan is severely underrated. I really like what Michigan's going to be able to do this year. North Carolina, I could honestly see them dropping out of the top 25 pretty soon here. Wow. I believe Elliot Cadeau, he's no longer there. I think I don't remember where he transferred to. It's hard to keep up nowadays with everything.
Days it's hard,
but I feel like it's going to be a weird year for North Carolina. I think they'll contend. They'll be in the top 3 of the ACC because the ACC is it's not the basketball conference it used to be, but it's going to be a weird year for them.
Yeah, certainly will. Moving on there, inside the top 20, interesting to see the Auburn Tigers at 20. This was the number 1 overall seed a year ago. I know Janai Broom is gone, and I know some of their top players from last season are gone, but Stephen Pearl is back from last year, who's now the head coach of this basketball team. What do you make of Auburn being ranked 20th by the pollsters?
Yeah, I feel like this one could be another underrated team, but we'll have to see what Stephen Pearl can do in his first year. Getting Tahad Pettiford back is definitely going to be a major boost for him. But as you mentioned, going to have to replace Janai Broom. You're going to have to replace Chad Baker-Mazara, who's in his 8th year or something. I believe he's heading into his age 26 season. You made a good point yesterday, whereas some guys are already negotiating their second contracts in the NBA, and he's still playing. But there are some major absences that got this Auburn team to the Final Four last year. I mean, Miles Kelly as well.
Right. Yeah, Miles Kelly was obviously a tremendous sharpshooter for this Auburn basketball team that was the top team in the country going into the NCAA tournament a year ago. Inside the top 15 is where you'll find the Alabama Crimson Tide. 2 years ago, they were the number 1 overall seed. I know they have fell short of expectations there as well, but Nate Oates does return a solid team there. But like Auburn, just probably too many pieces that are now off their team, obviously most notably their point guard and leading scorer, one of their leading scorers in Mark Sears.
Yeah, I just remember watching that March Madness game last year where Alabama dipped into triple digits, and it felt like they could not miss, and especially Mark Sears there. But that's going to be a huge absence for former Buffalo head coach Nate Oates.
That's right.
But looking ahead there, Arkansas at 14 is definitely interesting to me because I really think that Coach Cal can get this team into the SEC championship game in the SEC tournament. But you look after that, Arizona, UCLA. But I also want to make mention, this is an SEC show, but what Pat Kelsey has done there at Louisville
Yeah.
2 years ago, they won 4 games.
Right.
And now they're contending for the ACC again. I mean, it's just incredible.
Yeah, and you know they love it. I mean, Louisville is, I've been there many times for Kentucky Derbies, and we have friends over there. That is a basketball town. They love it.
Their whole starting lineup from in their March Madness game against Creighton was all transfers. They weren't there the year before. Chucky Hepburn led them, and I mean, it's just incredible, and it's exactly what the transfer portal can do.
Exactly. You can turn around your franchise just like that. Arkansas, as you mentioned, a Sweet 16 team last year. See if Coach Cal can parlay that success this year. Inside the top 10, you have Texas Tech, who seemingly is buying all their teams so far this year. You got Kentucky out of the SEC, Mark Pope coming back in another big year. I'll give you another stat on them in a bit. What sticks out to you?
Yeah, I believe might have made a mistake there with the Michigan. I believe 22nd was Michigan State, and then 7th there was Michigan.
Gotcha.
Just looking at this, Mark Pope, going to be another big year for Kentucky, I believe. It's funny you say that about Texas Tech. But number 6, Duke. I mean, I feel like this is going to be an overrated team this year.
Wow. That is a hot take.
I'm not buying into the hype. I know the Boozer twins are there in Durham, but I just don't see it.
All right, and the top 5 here. You got Purdue at number 1, followed by Houston. The Florida Gators, the defending champion, at number 3. What stands out?
St. John's at 5. I believe that this is the year that Rick Pitino gets it done.
Money. That's a very expensive staff. Thanks for joining us here at Southeast Sports Plus. We'll see you tomorrow.